Well, American businesses will be the ones to pay that extra 25% on Canadian goods. Canadian businesses are, of course, also going to feel the effects of Trump's tariffs and face trade uncertainty. Mark Edwards runs a biotech company in Manitoba, and he joins me now. Good to see you, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Rosemary.
Give me a sense of how damaging these tariffs will be for your company.
It's hard to tell, honestly, but I can say 100% of our sales right now are going into the U.S., so this 25% tariff certainly is not going to help.
What do you sell? What does your company do?
We developed a antimicrobial wound dressing. It's a gel that you'd apply onto chronic wounds such as a diabetic foot ulcer, and to try and clear up the infection that would lead to healing.
So if you are exporting this to the United States, you are going to be hit by this tariff. What will that mean? Will you have to increase the price of what you're selling? Will you have to lay off people in the company? What is your sense at this early stage?
Well, being a pharmaceutical product, we do have some, we've got some decent margins, so we'll probably actually have to lower our price a little bit as we sell it to our U.S. partner, and they'll have to reduce the margin our commercial partner take in the U.S. there. So we're hoping we're going to be able to share the pain with our U.S. Commercial partner.
Will you look for other markets, do you think, to expand into?
Yeah, I think that when CBC first approached me was to talk about a potential aid package from the government of Canada, and really what we'd like to see is adoption of this product in Canada. We're approved by Health Canada. Health Canada's got a pretty rigorous ISO certification process there that we have to go through to be able to apply in Canada. And it turns out that Canada's got a terrible track record with chronic wounds. We actually amputate twice as many people with diabetic foot ulcers on per capita basis as the U.S. does.
Do you, in order to make this, do you rely on any products from the United States that would also now be hit with a counter tariff?
We have to look at that, but most of our cost is in the actual manufacturing of the product, and it is manufactured here we actually manufacture it in Mirabel, Quebec.
Okay, so what is the thing that you're looking for then come Tuesday in terms of what you want to, how you'll know whether you can survive this or not?
It's still too early to tell. The uncertainty, as my predecessor mentioned here, it was really, we weren't sure what was going to happen. I think we'll come out of this pretty well. We've been putting a lot of energy into commercializing it in Canada, the Middle East, Central America. We're convinced that our product is really reasonably priced already. So in the U.S. we're still very competitive even with these tariffs. So we should come out of this pretty well. But really, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but as a business owner and the CEO of this business, what do you make of this reality that essentially the free trade agreement that we have had for decades no longer exists, and that the president is coming after Canadian companies like yours?
Yeah, but I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? And in essence, we've got a product in a very Canadian way. We're not price gouging like some of our competitors. We're pricing it very affordably. And it's just going to make our product more expensive for Americans. So it really doesn't make sense for us. I'm not sure why we're doing this, but it's really, I think one of the big issues for me is we're overly dependent on the U.S. I mean, it's very challenging to get our product sold in Canada. We need our product in Canada more than they do in the U.S. And it's very, very hard to get the product sold. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we're doing that make us too dependent on the U.S. as we move forward as a country, as a society.
So, and I talked about this a lot yesterday. Do you think there's opportunity here as well for Canadian businesses?
I hope so. I mean, Rosemary, we formulated our gel into a spray-on version of the gel. Okay, if I may, there, our Revive antimicrobial wound gel. It makes it incredibly, really for traumatic injuries such as burns, but also in conflict zones. So we'd love to see the Canadian government include this in the aid package for Ukraine. I mean, I think Ukrainians could benefit from this tremendously. Yeah. It would help us as a business, and reduce our dependency and create a
On
new
the United
market
States,
for
yeah,
us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mark Edwards, thank you so much for weighing in this morning. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Should tell you, you can see on the right of your screen that the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, in Vancouver this morning is reacting to the news that developed overnight. We did request a Conservative MP to appear on the program to talk about this more. No one responded to that request, but we're going to show you some of what Pierre Poilievre said in just a few moments. So we'll bring that to you when we have some English clips. As we mentioned, Canadian energy will be hit with a 10% tariff. Paul Colborne is the president and CEO of Surge Energy, a Calgary-based oil producer, and he joins me this morning from Calgary. Nice to see you this morning, Paul.
Yeah, thanks very much for the invite. Interesting times in Canada here.
Interesting to say the least. Tell me what you're thinking in terms of how this is going to affect your business. Obviously, the tariffs on Canadian energy a little bit lower, 10%, but none of this is good. So what will the impact be on your company, Paul?
The impact on our company is going to be muted. A, it's only 10%, and B, when differentials were at all-time lows earlier or in 2024, we hedged out a year at about 1380 differentials, WCS diffs. So now they've blown out to about 17. But at times in this industry,
Paul, for people that aren't as smart about the oil sector as you are, what does that mean? Does that mean that you pre-negotiated a price for your oil? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we locked in on the forward market trade to lock in our differentials at 1380. The long-term average is about $15.50 to $16 US a barrel for the last 50 years. So we thought that was good enough.
Yeah.
If you add the tariff on top, it's still very much business as usual for Surge, but it is impactful.
Sure. And the fact that the Canadian dollar will also start to go down when this goes into effect, does that give you a little cushion as well?
Yeah, so even today, your very good point, even today we are making about $103, $104 Canadian a barrel for our crude at Surge.
So really this would become a bigger problem if it is long lasting. Is that fair to say? If this goes on for months, God forbid, years, then you will really have a problem on your hands.
10% is not that, I wouldn't say it would be a problem, but it's not insurmountable. And companies like Surge were well positioned. We would be okay. It just, we wouldn't be as profitable, to your point.
Yeah. The president, when he explained why he was doing the tariff at 10% for Canadian energy, which includes oil, gas, hydroelectricity, et cetera, said that it is because Americans need this stuff. Did you find that at all reassuring? Certainly the Premier of Alberta believes that she made a bit of inroads there with the president with that argument.
Yeah, I think Danielle is the only one that's acting like a stateswoman, and she went down and asked them what they need. And I think the hilarity of this is that it's about border control or fentanyl. They need a better deal under free trade. And Brian Mulroney said it years ago, under free trade, marrying up with the biggest, strongest economy in the world, 1 + 1, Canada and the U.S. equals about 6 for Canada. And 1 + 1 equals about 3.5 for the U.S. So it's good, but I think the big picture is a negotiation, statesmanship. They're our number one partner, and marrying up with them has caused our standard to living go through the roof.
Right.
Under the last 9 years, our standard of living's dropped about 45%, as you can see in the dollar.
Yeah. You know, there had been conversations that obviously the Premier of Alberta was not on board with about how to use resources as leverage. That is still on the table, but it is not at all in the immediate plans. What do you make of that idea, that at some point turning off the taps to the United States might be a final play? Is that crazy talk to you, or give me your sense?
Again, I think statesmanship has to come into the picture. I think Danielle's totally right. I think it's unconstitutional. Resources are a provincial jurisdiction. She's stated that, and I'm sure would fight that. But as I said, if your standard of living in Canada, when they brought in free trade under Mulroney, we're making 900 billion Canadian a year. A few short years later, under free trade, we were making 1.7 trillion of GDP per year. Your standard of living and mine and our parents and our kids went up 50, 60, 70% lockstep with the US.
Yeah, yeah.
Now our GDP's plateaued and our population's doubled, so our GDP per capita has dropped dramatically versus the US. So I think,
yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
Paul, to interrupt. Just quickly, so you're feeling okay about things, which is great to hear. What do you say to other exporters, manufacturers, businesses across the country that may see the end of their businesses within weeks or months even?
Yeah, so I believe this is all a fault of the lack of leadership at our federal government. Why would you ever let one of the most important things happen in your trading relationship with your biggest trading partner by far, the biggest economy in the world, get to the point where you're not communicating with them, you're actually bashing heads?
Yeah.
In my business, we negotiate, we talk, we don't do evil, horrible things. And I believe if Trump stated it, Canada is getting, he believes, too good a deal under the free trade agreement. So let's be down there and talking. And what do you need? What kind of a deal do you need? If you look at when Mulroney brought it in, free trade agreement, or the original one, he was down negotiating as friends and long-term 120-year business partners. He wasn't bashing at him. He was negotiating a fair deal for the U.S. has to win, we have to win, and we win way more marrying up with them than fighting them, I believe.
Paul Colborne, really good to get your perspective this morning. So appreciate you making the time. We'll talk again maybe as things unfold, but wishing you all the best.
Anytime. Thank you very much for your great questions. Thank you.
Thanks for your great answers. Nice to meet you.